ESPN NFL insider Adam Schefter just gave us the latest update when it comes to Aaron Rodgers and his potential timeline to give us a decision of whether or not he's going to play NFL football in 2026 and whether or not he will play for the Pittsburgh Steelers this upcoming season. Before we get into the latest Rodgers update from Schefter here, I want to give you guys a little bit of an update here on our merch battle that we are doing currently with our Cleveland Browns channel here at Chat Sports. We both have drinking team t-shirts available on our website right now. You guys can go chatsports.com/pickgreen to get yours today. And right now we are just one t-shirt behind Cleveland. I want to pass these guys because I currently have a bet with our Cleveland host, Joey O'Donohue here at Chat Sports. Whoever ends up selling the most shirts this week, the other one owes them a steak dinner. So I do not want to owe our Browns host a steak dinner. Guys, help us out right now. If you want to get this Steel City Drinking Team t-shirt, it's a limited edition t-shirt. It's only going to be available up until St. Patrick's Day. You guys can go chatsports.com/pickgreen to get some merch from us here at Chat Sports and help us beat the Cleveland Browns. All right, so now let's get into the latest updates surrounding Aaron Rodgers from ESPN's Adam Schefter, who says that Rodgers is likely to make his decision as to whether or not he will play in 2026 by quote-unquote mid-March. This is what Schefter had to say earlier this week. The belief around the league, and let's preface it by saying it is Aaron Rodgers, and so there's absolutely no absolutes, and things can change like that. But the belief around the league is that he is supposed to give an answer by mid-March. I think the feeling is that he could be back with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So this is a pretty big update there. It kind of echoes what Omar Khan had to say at his press conference yesterday, saying, it's not going to last until June. It's not going to be like last year. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind that anything coming out of Schefter's mouth in regards to Aaron Rodgers is not sourced by anyone close to Rodgers. He's probably getting this information from his sources inside the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. And even then, Schefter's sourcing inside the Steelers building is shaky because he was saying the Steelers were interested in Shedeur Sanders last year in the first round, and we know how that all shook out. So just take Schefter kind of with a grain of salt here. He doesn't have the best sourcing when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and of course Rodgers himself told him to lose his number way back when, so he definitely has no insight into what Aaron Rodgers is thinking. But the NFL's legal tampering period does start on March 9th, so that is coming up very, very quickly. That's when NFL teams can begin talking with upcoming free agents and all that different stuff. And then, of course, free agency officially begins on March 11th, okay? And that is around that mid-March type of time frame there, where Schefter is projecting Aaron Rodgers is going to make his decision. Now, I think that I think I could see Pittsburgh waiting a few days after free agency for Aaron Rodgers. Like, I'm sure that they'll have like a plan B and plan C option, in case he decides to retire. Maybe Geno Smith, maybe they trade for Andy Dalton. We'll talk about that later in today's show. And in terms of a bridge QB, while they try and bring up the future of the organization, whether that's Will Howard or a younger quarterback. But I could see Pittsburgh waiting maybe a couple of days for Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think they're going to wait much past like March 15th, for example, for Rodgers to make a decision. Like Omar Khan said, this is not going to be a situation where we're waiting until June for Aaron Rodgers. I think that the Steelers will move on from Aaron if he hasn't made a decision by a certain set date. However, Adam Schefter does speculate, even though he says that the league expects Rodgers to be back with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Schefter speculated about the Minnesota Vikings and whether they could be a surprise candidate to land Rodgers this offseason. Schefter said this: if we go back to last year, he wanted to play in Minnesota. That is the interesting one to me, right? I don't know how Aaron Rodgers feels. I don't know how the Vikings feel. And I think the Vikings didn't want to do it last year because they were being protective of J.J. McCarthy. Do they still feel that way, or is Aaron Rodgers more in the conversation? Now, I think from the Minnesota Vikings perspective, this actually makes some sense, and I do think that if Rodgers goes anywhere other than the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason, I do think Minnesota is probably the second most likely destination for the former NFL MVP. However, it does sound like, based on a number of different reporting here, that's going to be Pittsburgh or retire for Aaron Rodgers this year, and I don't really foresee him, starting over yet again with a new team, even though he is buddies with Kevin O'Connell. They got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison there in Minnesota, all those different things, but I think that it's probably Pittsburgh or bust for Aaron Rodgers, and Tom Pelissero echoed that statement last week on the Rich Eisen show, saying the odds are rising that Aaron Rodgers comes back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't see it being any place else if he's going going to play, I believe it's going to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then even Rodgers himself has talked about how important continuity is for him in particular, playing in a particular offense. Towards the end of last season, he talked about what it could potentially look like to have a year two here in Pittsburgh, and this is what he had to say. Anytime you're in a first-year offense, there's always going to be some growing pains in the offense. So it's like you feel like if you had another year, what could you do? I look at 2019, the first year with Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, the way I played in 2019, and then kind of the adjustments we made in the offseason, and then the way I played in 2020, which was just kind of in a whole other level. I think a lot of that is just familiarity with the offense and with the guys. So, if Rodgers really cares about continuity that much, why would it make sense for him to start over all again and go to Minnesota and build new chemistry with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and a bunch of guys that he hasn't played with before when he's already played with DK Metcalf here? He's already played with Darnell Washington, Pat Freiermuth, Jaylen Warren. Maybe they bring back, Kenneth Gainwell. Maybe Roman Wilson is going to be a part of this rotation next year in some capacity. Like Rodgers already has established chemistry with a lot of the players in the Steelers offense already, not to mention he's already played in Mike McCarthy's offense, so he's got that familiarity as well. If Rodgers is looking for continuity in his second year or in his age 43 season, I would think that Pittsburgh is definitely the team that he would choose if he chooses to play this year. Not to mention he really enjoyed his time in Pittsburgh last year, guys. That's been well documented. He loves the city, he loves the fan base, he loves the team, and he loves the people inside the locker room, his fellow teammates. So I do think if Rodgers returns, it will be for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But with that said, if he does leave the Steelers to play somewhere else, I do think Minnesota is probably the most likely option. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers have an answer from Aaron Rodgers by the start of free agency? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our new sponsor here at Rag & Bone. Well, I'll tell you about our sponsor today. Simply give me a yes or a no down there in the comments. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's pretty cold here in our studio here at Chat Sports, and I'm absolutely obsessed with this brand new denim shirt that I got from our brand new sponsor here on Steelers Talk, which is Rag & Bone. Rag & Bone Infuse offers a range of fits tailored for any style and occasion, from slim and straight to athletic and relaxed. Infused denim is a wardrobe staple that pairs perfectly with any outfit in whatever fit you prefer. For a limited time, our listeners get 20% off their entire order with code CHAT at rag-bone.com. I was completely blown away the first time I tried on my Rag & Bone shirt and jeans because of how broken in they felt right away and how high quality the materials were. I used to have to choose between jeans that looked great and ones that actually lasted, but with Rag & Bone, I finally get the best of both worlds. Rag & Bone Infused Denim is crafted with a proprietary 8-step over-dye process, and it gives each piece a rich, dimensional color that gets better with every wash. And not only do they look great, guys, but Rag & Bone makes jeans that are built to last, that actually get more comfortable the more that you wear them. It's time to upgrade your denim with Rag & Bone today. For a limited time only, our listeners can get 20% off their entire order with code CHAT at rag-bone.com. That's 20% off at rag-bone.com with promo code CHAT. When they ask where you heard about them, please support our show and tell them that we sent you. And a big thank you to Rag & Bone for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Now shifting our focus to a potential Plan B option for the Pittsburgh Steelers if Aaron Rodgers decides to retire or leave this offseason. Malik Willis's price tag this offseason has apparently been released by Jordan Schultz, who claims that Willis is expected to get at least $30 million per season in free agency this year. That is very close to Sam Darnold-esque money that he got from the Seattle Seahawks just last offseason, is what Schultz had to say in his report today from the NFL Combine. Packers free agent QB Malik Willis is in demand as expected, and interested teams I've spoken to at the Combine in Indianapolis believe him getting at least $30 million per year is a foregone conclusion. So, I mean, not only could it just be $30 million, it could be more than that. It could get up to the $35 million that Spotrac currently projects for Malik Willis, or maybe even higher if the bidding war gets completely out of control. Now, my first reaction to this was bringing Aaron Rodgers back for $15 million next year doesn't sound so bad right now, does it, guys? That's one of the main benefits of bringing back Aaron Rodgers is not only Does he have incredible football intellect, really good arm talent, chemistry with the guys in your locker room, familiarity with the offense? But he's also super, super cheap for a starting level NFL quarterback, and you can build a better team around your quarterback with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback as opposed to paying more for a guy like Malik Willis. Now, the reality of the situation, guys, with Willis and why his market is so kind of crazy to some people for somebody that's only had 6 career NFL starts is that Willis is the only young, traitsy quarterback, free agent, that teams in the NFL view as a potential long-term starter hitting the market this year. Okay, there's a lot of older guys. Kyler Murray could still be a quote-unquote franchise option, but you have to trade for him, and he's had some down years. Malik Willis has had a couple of opportunities to play for the Green Bay Packers and has looked really, really good these last 2 years, particularly in his last little stint there with the Packers where he played against the Bears and the Ravens and absolutely balled out, and the efficiency was off the charts. For these teams that are looking at this really poor quarterback market, they're saying this is the guy that's got the star level upside. Like, yeah, it's a risk. He might not be anything and, might have just been a flash in the pan last year, but it might not be. And we don't want to miss out on the best quarterback on the free agency market in a year where there's not a lot of quarterback prospects in the draft. There's not a lot of, established starter talent coming out in free agency. That's just the way it's going to work this offseason. He's going to get paid a lot of money. And that's obviously going to mean that there's going to be a bidding war for Malik Willis. There's going to be there's too much quarterback demand in the NFL. There's too many QB needy teams. There's not enough good, young, traitsy, potential star quarterbacks out there available to acquire. And Malik Willis, say what you will about him, but he's got the dynamic athleticism. He's got the dynamic arm talent, playmaking ability. He's thrived in a Shanahan/McVay style offense there with Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. There's a lot of things to Malik's profile, even though he's got a really small sample size of actually playing as a starter in the NFL, that NFL teams are really going to like. And like I said, guys, there's just a lot of QB needy teams out there outside of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Jets are looking for a quarterback and have a lot of cap space. The Colts are probably bringing back Daniel Jones, but I think the Cardinals and Dolphins are two teams that are definitely going to be in on Malik Willis. I think Willis probably ends up going to one of those two spots if I'm a betting man, and I have to guess, but Cleveland and Minnesota are other teams that could be looking for quarterback help. In fact, Cleveland is apparently pretty interested in Malik Willis themselves. Now, my take on the situation when it comes to Malik Willis, guys, and knowing that the price tag is likely going to be at least $30 million per season, I still think he's my plan B for the Steelers if Rodgers retires. I still think Rodgers should be plan A because he's the cheapest option out of the legit starting options out there. He's got the chemistry with the guys. He still has good arm talent, football intellect, all that different stuff. You guys know that if you've been watching the channel. But as long as the Steelers get Malik Willis to like a 2-year deal without a ton of second-year guarantees on it, I think this is something that could work for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, you think about $30 million per season. That's a lot of money, but it's only 20th among NFL QBs right now. And because, C.J. Stroud might get an extension this offseason, and, there's some other players that could, get inside the top 20 and get paid even more than $30 million per year APY. By the end of the offseason, like if the Steelers pay Malik Willis $30 million per year, he might be outside of the top 20 in terms of the quarterbacks getting paid in the National Football League as we sit here today. So I look at the Malik Willis potential contract here as one that, you are incurring a little bit of risk. And, I would say that, the price tag for Willis has been inflated by the lack of, high-end quarterback talent on the market this year. But if Willis disappoints, guys, like you bring him in for a $30 million contract per season over 2 years, so $60 million total, you only guarantee like $35 to $40 million of that. If he stinks next year, you cut him in 2027 with very little dead cap penalty, and you can go draft your franchise quarterback of the future in the NFL draft in 2027. It should be a pretty QB-rich draft next year. But if he hits and he's an awesome quarterback and he plays really well for the black and gold, the Steelers have their new franchise quarterback, and they could even extend him next offseason if they wanted to. I think that this is a risk that is worth taking for the Pittsburgh Steelers if Aaron Rodgers retires. And I think that there's a pretty decent argument to be made for Willis, even if you think the Steelers should move on from Aaron Rodgers and try to embrace the future here in the Steel City. And the other thing about, not pursuing Willis, if you don't like the Willis idea, like what idea is better out there outside of Aaron Rodgers that's going to be like a clearly better option for the Pittsburgh Steelers? I know a lot of Steelers fans are going to be like, let's just start Will Howard, but it's like the reality of the situation is, guys, they're not just going to hand the job to a sixth-round pick that didn't even play in the preseason last year. At the very least, they're going to bring in some veteran to compete with Will Howard, like a Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins or Geno Smith or potentially Andy Dalton, and that's who we're going to be talking about next here on Steelers Talk. But what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comments. Would you sign Malik Willis to a deal worth 2 years, $60 million total, with $35 million guaranteed, pretty much all of that being in the first year of his contract? Type S for sign or type P for pass. Let me know your take on Malik Willis down there in the comment section. Now we'll talk here about Andy Dalton as Adam Schefter pops back up here on today's show, as he reported today that Carolina has apparently been getting calls on QB Andy Dalton this offseason, and there's definitely some speculation floating around as to which teams have been calling the Panthers surrounding a quarterback that hasn't been a franchise option in quite a while now. Schefter said this today: another available QB, Carolina has been getting calls about Andy Dalton for a potential trade, per sources. Now, Dalton is getting up there in age. This is another older quarterback option, 38 years old, but he does have almost 170 NFL starts over his 15-year career. And, one of the selling points on Dalton is that he has spent multiple years as a mentor to young quarterbacks, guys like Justin Fields and Bryce Young. He's been the bridge quarterback for those respective teams. Now, obviously, Young and Fields are two guys that, Fields is definitely a bust, but Bryce Young is definitely, the jury's still out on him. So you could, make an argument that Dalton's not very good at that mentor job. But, Dalton's another guy that has a connection to Mike McCarthy, as he was the Dallas Cowboys quarterback in 2020 when Dak Prescott went down with that early season injury. And I can't say that he played great that season, just less than 200 passing yards a game for Dalton that year, 14-8 touchdown to interception ratio, and 87.3 passer ratings, okay. But Dalton is somebody that's been like a high-end backup for multiple years now, more of a bridge option at quarterback. And that's exactly what he would be if the Steelers end up trading for him. And, if the Steelers do get him, I would consider him a short-term bridge quarterback option that's a mentor for young quarterbacks. And, if you get Andy Dalton, you're probably taking Ty Simpson in round one. I'll just say that right now. Or Will Howard is going to be expected to start at some point during the 2026 NFL season. Now, in terms of the tiers of the plan that I have right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers, plan A is bring back Aaron Rodgers and then have a couple of younger quarterbacks working behind him, competing to be the long-term starting option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So like Will Howard and maybe Drew Aller or Will Levis or Anthony Richardson working behind Rodgers. That would be plan A for me. But then plan B would be to sign Malik Willis and see how that goes for a year. Plan C is to get a strong-armed bridge veteran that can play in the AFC North and then have an open QB competition between Dalton or Geno Smith or Joe Flacco or whoever you bring in as the bridge option, and then the younger quarterbacks that you have on the roster, Will Howard and probably a rookie. So if you're looking at those bridge QB options, those guys that are older, veteran guys that can be mentors to a younger quarterback, but are not going to be your long-term answer at starting quarterback, guys like Geno Smith. Andy Dalton is definitely in that mix as well. Joe Flacco could hit the cycle here in the AFC North if he comes to Pittsburgh. Kirk Cousins is another option, and then Marcus Mariota is another guy with quite a bit of starting experience and recent starting experience, I might add. But the price tag here, in my opinion, in any Andy Dalton trade, it's like a late day 3 pick. It might even be like a late day 3 pick swap. Like, he's just not that valuable as a trade asset as like a bridge/high-end backup quarterback. So if Carolina's expecting to get anything out of him, I would say like a 7th-round pick is something that the Steelers could throw Carolina's way if they feel like the Red Rifle can fill a role here with the Pittsburgh Steelers next season. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. Let's just say Aaron Rodgers retires and Malik Willis signs with the Cardinals, all right? And you have to get some other veteran quarterback in here. Are you going to trade a 7th-round pick for Andy Dalton? Type A for accept or D for decline. Personally, guys, I'm going to decline this, and I'm actually, if I have to bring in a bridge quarterback option for a year, I'm actually bringing in Geno Smith. He's got a stronger arm. He's started more recently than Dalton has. He's got chemistry already built up with DK Metcalf, and I can get him without having to spend one of my 7th-round draft picks to get him on my football team. Now, if you guys want more Steelers QB rumors, we put out a video earlier today, guys, where we talk about Mel Kiper Jr. projecting Ty Simpson in round 1 to the Pittsburgh Steelers in his latest mock draft. I talk about Drew Aller and whether or not he's a better prospect for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the quarterback position than Ty Simpson is. And then we also talk about an underrated and under-the-radar quarterback target via the trade market market that the Steelers could consider as well. So I'll put the chip to that one in the top right if you want to check out that earlier video. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk. We might have another video for you guys coming up later today. It's Combine Week. Rumors are absolutely flying. So if we get more stuff from the NFL Combine, we're going to get you guys an evening video tonight. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already to never miss any of our free content that we're providing for you guys right here on Steelers Talk.